Test, test, test. Hello. Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our introductory video. Part 1 went way out of control because I ended up talking about cameras and filmmaking, something that I'm very, very interested in, very passionate about. I hope it was interesting. And here in part 2, I really want to talk to you guys about what WTF World is. We've got two facets to WTF World. The first is a comic strip we do, released on Instagram, released on Twitter, where we depict crazy-ass news stories. And crazy-ass news stories. And you know the kind of stories. You read a headline, your jaw falls open, you start laughing. Florida man news stories. But it's not just going to be Florida man type stories. It's going to be stuff like interesting historical details, things that we've never known before, things too crazy to be true, but they are true. Like during the Cold War, there was a plan to put nuclear landmines in Europe, but they couldn't figure out how to prevent the cold ground in Europe from interfering with the landmines. So someone's idea was to put chickens on top of the landmines. True story, look into it. And we also want to do stories about just amazing technological breakthroughs. An article that we're prepping to do a strip for is some scientists have figured out how to print grainy images of what people are visualizing in their heads. So you think of a picture of a bunny, so you imagine a bunny. Scientists have figured out how to take that image in your head and print it. Even crazier, they figured out how to take numbers out of your head. If you think about the PIN number for your debit card or your credit card, they can pluck those numbers out of your head. And the way they do that is they put electrodes on your head and they monitor which part of your brain lights up as you think about these things. We've mapped the human brain so well that we can pull numbers, we can pull images from your head just by watching what parts of your brain are working at that moment. And that's crazy. We're literally living in science fiction. We're living in the world that sci-fi writers have been writing about for a century now. And that just blows my mind. Another story we're prepping is there's a university professor in Sweden named Charlotta Turner. And one day she received a text from one of her students. This student was a man in his 40s, maybe 50s, and the text said that if he wasn't back in class in a week, she should remove him from the program. And so she called him as soon as she got this text and wanted to know what the problem was. And he was crying into the phone. And he said that he was trapped in Iraq with his family. They were huddled in a small town. ISIS, the terrorist group ISIS, had them surrounded and was shelling them with munitions. All exits out of the town had been closed off. There was no escape. And he really expected that he and his family would die in the next couple of days. The professor went and talked to the head of security at the university, and the head of security told her that they had a global transport and security apparatus. Now, when I read this article, my response was, why? Why does a university have a global security apparatus? Is that common? Do other universities have a global security apparatus? I'm trying to avoid saying apparatus as a plural, because I don't know if it's apparatuses or apparati. At any rate, they had one. They contacted a team of mercenaries and 4 heavily armed, heavily armored mercenaries in 2 Land Rovers blasted their way through ISIS lines, grabbed this guy and his family, and got them the hell out of there. Here's where the story gets a bit confusing. According to the NBC article I read on this, the family was saved. They were all flown out. According to the Fox article I read on this, only the guy was flown out and his family was left behind. So I'm going to assume the Fox News article is wrong, because that just makes no sense otherwise. Now, thinking about this, when I was in university, I missed one of my finals because I was trapped at an airport that was snowed in. The professor was cool. He said no big deal, I could write it when I got back. And I always thought, hey, that was pretty cool of that professor. But now, looking at this news story, I can't help but remember the time that a drunk girl blew up my toilet and my professor did not send mercenaries, didn't even send plumbers to help save my bathroom. That was not something I was bitter about until this moment, when I saw the lengths that Charlotta Turner went to help her students. My professor didn't do anything to save my life. He didn't even do anything to save my toilet. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. An example of another story that we're going to do is an astronaut in space just butt dialed 911. This happened a few days ago. And of course, the NASA ground crew was just sent into a panic. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that a phone could function in space. Turns out it did. Turns out he was calling... I'm making it sound like a cell phone, but I don't think it was a cell phone. It looked like it was whatever they have for phones on the station. And he tried to hit 9 for an outside line, and then he tried to hit 011 for wherever he was calling, but he dropped the 0, so he ended up calling 911. And then he hung up on them. And when someone phones 911 and hangs up, they panic because they think someone's being killed, and they try to send cops to that location. So, so the ground crew at NASA, the people on the ground, were in quite a bit of panic, probably more than they would normally have been, because of another situation that's unfolding. I don't know if you guys have been following this. I've seen quite a few articles on this. It was recently revealed that the International Space Station, the ISS, deliberately had a hole punched in the side. There was a hole punched in it, a small one, that was letting oxygen escape. Obviously, that's a potentially fatal situation that could have killed everyone inside. And where it gets crazier is it was recently revealed that the hole could not have been accidental because it came from the inside of the shuttle. The hole was punched outwards from inside, whereas something hitting the shuttle, the hole would be punched inwards from outside. The hole was deliberately created. Someone was deliberately trying to sabotage the shuttle. And so, as they're trying to solve this mystery of sabotage, potentially international espionage, I'm sure that having this as the backdrop to the 911 call just made the people at NASA panic a little bit more. All right, guys. This looks like a good place to end part 2 of the introductory video. I've now given you some content. You have some idea of what to expect. Oh, wait, hey. I never even told you guys what the YouTube channel is for. But I'm kind of running out of time, so I'll do it quickly. Okay, the YouTube channel is for talking about the stories that are far too detailed and have far too lengthy backstories in order to cover on a single cartoon strip, which we try to keep short and pithy and to the point. So the YouTube channel is where we're going to talk about the longer stories where things get really interesting, which have such a rich background tapestry of details for us to delve into and which are so fascinating. God damn. Selling micro machines would be a fucking nightmare. How did that guy do it? Okay, it's probably not a good idea to sign off from videos when you're lightheaded, but here we go. Call to action time. If you like listening to my bullshit, please like the video, subscribe, leave some comments, and we'll see you guys at the next video.